metaphysical realists want to affirm transcendental realism, which he denies, right? So the way that the term real is construed here is in such a way where there aren't going to be any a priori restrictions that would make it so you couldn't be radically deluded about how the world actually is, quote unquote, given realism. So once you accept the condition of correspondence that truth is not going to be reducible to any set of conceptual schemes that we might hold to,
Sorry, repeat that last part.
Yeah, once you grant that truth is not going to be reducible to any set of epistemic notions or conceptual schemes, then there aren't going to be any a priori restrictions that could make it so that you couldn't be radically deluded about what your beliefs about how the world is, right? That's the idea. Now, if you deny correspondence, then really the argument isn't applicable, right?
Yeah, he does.
Well, I mean, I don't know if he actually did he actually say that he does deny?
Yeah, he holds up to a pragmatic theory of truth. Something like truth is like the goal of inquiry, or
well, but I don't see. Look, but again, like if he's committed to that theory of truth, okay, that's fine. But is this supposed to be a counter argument against premise one, where if metaphysical realism is true, then global skepticism is possible? Because he can accept that first premise and still hold on to pragmatism, right? There's no contradiction.
Maybe. I think if you want to understand his view, Bill Grommy writes on, I think it's called Realism and Relativism or something like that. It's a paper, and it sort of goes through, I think, Jack's view and the pragmatic theory of truth and the specific assumptions of Descartes that are to be rejected. But I don't know enough about it to further comment. I mean, I'm not saying you have a bad argument or something. I'm just saying that there's so much I don't know about.
You know, he doesn't find it that problematic. Maybe he has other assumptions given his pragmatist epistemology that would render it false. But again, we're just going to have to see what his view is.
Sorry, I haven't read that paper. I plan to. But like this whole Brain in the Vat, Matrix, like evil demon stuff, like these are all like the ideas that, and this is not a very good articulation of his position, but it's the best I can muster. The idea is that if the Matrix is sort of, it has some kind of explanatory factor as far as your experiences go, versus like atoms explaining like why you have certain experiences rather than others, that why are we suggesting that one set of experiences are real and the other is not? You know, or for the brain in the middle of that, you know, I think that's kind of where it starts.
The idea here that I want to make clear is that you don't have to, you could cling on to the thesis of mind independence and drop correspondence. That's fine. I'm just saying that if you hold those two in conjunction, it just makes, at that point, it would make global skepticism possible, right? But if you affirm mind independence and deny correspondence, then no, I don't see how it follows that global skepticism is possible, given other arguments.
Yeah, that's my impression. You're going to have to ask him, just ask him directly, do you hold to a pragmatist epistemology, or rather, I should say, you know, pragmatic theory of truth? Hey, you should say yes. That's the update that I got last, but it's been a while.
Yeah, he does affirm those.
Well,
apparently that sort of changes the way, you know, there's a whole package here that I'm aware there's a whole package. I can't tell you the contents. I just can tell you the label, and that's as far as I can go.
Darth, what do you make of that distinction Josh was trying to make about objective is not equivalent to metaphysically real?
Well, then, sure, but then what? How is he construing? In what sense is he using metaphysical realism?
Perhaps, in terms of first and third person point of view, the idea is that I'm not even sure how that meshes well with the value property stuff, but the idea is that an objective thing or fact or state of affair would be probably the better term, is going to be something that's equally accessible to all psychology. It's independent of like background information.
The state of affairs is going to be equally accessible by all psychologies, independent of background information.
So, like,
and
you and I, let's say we look at a hammer. You and I look at a hammer. It's perceptual, but there's still there's a kind of a theory laden, right? The idea is that we're going to make some inference about what it is, and suppose a very different psychology from a different planet or
Let's
what.
be clear here. But let's be clear here. Under the analysis in which you say it's objectively the case that such and such is required for agency, you want to construe such and such as partially being external value properties, right? Which is, in other terms, construing those external value properties as being independent of.
Saying is that in terms of how objective might be construed, I was offering a way that I think Jack and even myself understand, objectivity.
If you're construing that those external value properties are mind independent, and there's some fixed totality of those like mind independent value properties, and I don't see how it is incompatible with the sense of metaphysical realism that I used right at the beginning of this argument.
I'm not so sure if I follow there. If you could repeat that.
The idea is that you're holding that there are some fixed totality of mind independent value properties. You want to say that there are some like set of like prearranged or just like some set of properties in the world that appear to be they appear to exist in a way that's unalterable by our like sense perception, right? They're independent of the way we perceive those properties.
Okay. Because the idea is that I think when I talked to Jack about that like 2 or 3 years ago, he thinks that value can fluctuate. So it's not like fixed, but I don't think that's what you meant by fixed. Like it can change. Like in one moment you'll see the value, and then it could be that the next event it's no longer there.
Yeah, but that might just be the perception.
I'm asking you if you agreed with the way I characterized metaphysical realism. At least
about value. Well, it gets tricky with value.
Well, let me be clear. Partially in regards to like the thesis of mind independence. Like you obviously want to affirm that those value properties are mind independent, correct?
Well, that's what I don't take a position on that, but I'm not so sure. But in terms of characterizing Jack, yeah.
Yeah. So then, I mean, I'm not saying that this exhausts the thesis. There might be some like miscommunication here, but I'm saying partially your analysis about the existence of those objects is construed in a way where you're committed to those objects existing independent of minds, right? It doesn't have to exhaust the thesis, or it doesn't have to exhaust your analysis of it. I never made that claim. Obviously, you could hold to the metaphysical thesis of value or ethical realism, and you could hold to the aletheist thesis and other theses down the line, right? That's not controversial. But you at least agree with how I'm construing metaphysical realism in regards to value properties being external, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so then that's how I'm construing value realism under Jack's view, which could be partially understood as a metaphysically realist position.
Yeah, I'm worried that the way that we're using metaphysical realism is, or to say that value is external. I wonder if y'all mean the same thing.
Wait, Danny, are you denying that it's an entailment, like outright after hearing all this?
That what is an entailment?
That the metaphysical realism would be an entailment of Jack's view on value.
Just depends on what you mean by metaphysical realism.
There's like 3 definitions in the chat. Take a look. They're pretty straightforward and broad.
Yeah, but I don't take a position on that because that's something I'm kind of investigating, and I can't characterize Jack for sure about what he exactly means by real or realism, other than I hinted at a pragmatist epistemology, which has a huge impact on what's going to count as real or not.
I mean, it's just the thesis that the world is the way it is.
I think I've repeated myself like to absurdity here as to like what I'm using as how I'm characterizing realism as being, and how it's mostly characterized in the literature. But if you're using a different sense that has to appeal to like theories of truth, then like sure. But then again, I don't see how this is that relevant, right? Because I thought that the controversial premise is that global skepticism is even possible, right? Given how we're construing metaphysical realism, right?
Maybe it would help me if
we're contesting that entailment, right?
Maybe if you would help me understand a scenario where you're systematically deceived, like maybe an example.
You need to like pick any skeptical scenario, like a Cartesian demon, or
you just take the Cartesian demon, right? So
okay,
a Cartesian demon. I just had I just had some popcorn chicken. Okay, so they want to say that I'm systematically deceived. The evil demon sort of has some kind of explanatory function in producing those experiences, right? And they want you want to say that therefore my experiences of eating popcorn chicken is not real. Is that, if you could add on to that picture and help me understand?
Yeah, well, the idea there is that you have this perception which at least appears that you're eating X, right? But it's actually the case that you're not eating X. It's
What
just
does
that
that mean?
I think you know what I mean, right? The
No.
idea. Well, what isn't clear about it? The idea there is that you're going to have this situation where something appears to be the case for you, right? Let's just say it appears to be the case that you're eating chicken, right, or something, but you're just eating chicken in some like dream, right? And the imagery appears to be that of real life, but it's not actually real life, quote unquote. Is
What
that
does it mean to say that it's in a dream rather than in real life?
you could construe real here as being independent of your conceptual schemes. That could be one
I just
idea.
don't know. Look, I don't know what that. So, have you seen the movie Inception?
No.
Okay. Well, the idea is that they take this medication to go in a dream, right? That's not apparently real. It's not real life, obviously. That if they die in the dream, right, they just wake up. So, how I understand the difference between the quote unquote real world and the dream world is just in terms of, if I were to be stabbed in the heart, I would then I would continue to experience, versus in the quote unquote real world, that would mean if I was stabbed in the heart, then I would cease to exist. So the word real there is just in terms is construed in terms of whether I would continue living given being stabbed in the heart or shot in the head. So
Well, that's just assuming certain things, that the term real refers to the set of like predictive expectations, right?
right, and
That you
that's where the pragmatist.
but that's just but I'm not plugging in a pragmatist epistemology when I say that something is real, right?
Right. So I think
That's
that's what I'm saying is that,
the idea. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I think that's kind of the idea, is that the way that you're construing metaphysical realism is sort of independent of the kind of the kind of predictive, tying predicted outcome with.
Yeah, I'm saying that you could have two models that have identical empirical consequences, right? It's just that those two models that have identical empirical consequences don't depict how the world actually is.
Yeah, that's what I don't remember. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, independent of our conceptual schemes and models.
Yeah, I
So
don't know what that means.
I think you know what I mean. Well, I think I just explained it clearly as to like what it means.
Well, I don't think it's going to help me.
Wait, Danny, can I ask you a question here?
Well,
Do you just deny like every like standard understanding of what is, in virtue of what something is a skeptical scenario?
I'm saying that there's a lot of Cartesian scenario assumptions here about what counts as real and what doesn't, and that's kind of what the pragmatist is
so
pushing away
let
against.
me
And I
get
think a lot of people.
let me get this straight, Danny. So if I were to say that the existence of value properties are independent of our predictive models, do you find that what I just said cognitive or not?
I don't know if they would be independent of. I don't know how to analyze that.
If I were to say value properties exist independently of our conceptual schemes slash models slash stances, that is unintelligible to you?
No, I think that it's not unintelligible. That part's not. I mean, what I'm trying to say is how do. I
Okay,
don't
but
really think.
then if that's not okay, but Danny, if that's not unintelligible, then tell me what the symmetry breaker is between that and just saying that other objects in the world, let's just say chairs, tables, etc., that those things exist. If I were to say that those things exist independently of our predictive models, beliefs, desires, stances, that is unintelligible.
I think I can't, on the
Is that
first place,
gibberish?
I struggle to understand
Is that
the
gibberish?
value of externalism.
So to be clear, what you're not clear on is what it would mean in general to say that the sense of real, when I'm construed in such a way that's independent of any like predictive models that we might come up with. You're saying that that's
Well, I
unintelligible.
think value complicates things. I think that it's more like if I'm
Well,
having.
I know that under Jack's view, value doesn't generate predictions, but what I'm asking is,
Well, I
I'm
don't know if you would
talking.
accept that.
Well,
It doesn't itself generate any predictions, but there can be priors, right? Like generally speaking, every time.
principle, yes, I can. In principle, yes, I can grant you that. But I'm more
Okay.
talking about the status of those properties. Let me just be clear. You're committed into saying that it's gibberish to say that those value properties exist in such a way that's independent of our conceptual schemes or how we might interpret those properties?
Look, I'm not saying it's gibberish or not gibberish. I haven't really thought about it, is what I'm telling you, in terms of how to fit it in with sort of realism that Jack and I endorse. Because I mean, maybe he has an answer for you, but I think that what the
Sure.
overall point you should take away from me is that, given the way that, the pragmatist understands real, right? Then does that have an implication on what it would mean to say that there's an external property and an external value property? Then because what I'm scared or fearful of is that if you have all these Cartesian assumptions, that it's just going to render, by necessity, the value externalism incoherent, but it's everything, including external value properties.
Well, I'm thinking about the metaphysical thesis of value realism being that those value properties are external of our stances, let's just say. So value under this externalist view is independent of our attitudes. It's not like value is projected.
How does it change all the, I guess, metaphysical calculus if suddenly, instead of what it means to discover that you value cake, and that's just a function of discovering your own facts about your own psychology, to discovering some kind of external non-natural property in the world? Like, I'm failing to understand exactly, like,
some status to their existence that's independent of our conceptual schemes. That's how I'm thinking about the thesis. And